All right, let's explore the concept of your earthly purpose from another perspective. This is adapted from a talk I gave in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, March 1987. And I'd like to begin by sharing some information about science and metaphysics. First, the entire universe operates on the same principle of vibrational energy, and you are vibrational energy. You were born into this life with a vibrational rate you earned in the past. Everyone in this room has a different vibrational rate, and whether you realize it or not, your purpose is to raise it. Now, as an example, let's assume that vibrational rates vary from 0 to 1,000. And for the sake of this discussion, let's accept that the metaphysical teachers are correct, and there are 7 levels on the other side in the non-physical realms of spirit. The lower astral planes would be the lowest vibrational level, and a very undesirable place to be. And the 7th, or Godhead level, would be the highest, or 1,000. Now, we'll pretend that you were born with a vibrational rate of, let's say, 400. Now, this is the rate you've earned as a result of how you lived your past lives, and from your efforts while in spirit between lifetimes. Now, how you live your current life will determine if you raise or lower your vibrational rate. If you rise above some of your fears, pass some of your karmic tests, and live a basically positive life, you'll probably raise your vibrational rate. Let's assume you live a positive life and raise your vibrational rate from 400 to, let's say, 465. The rate of 400 might have placed you on the 3rd level on the other side in spirit, but 465 might place you on the 4th level. So, when you die and cross over, you'll find yourself drawn to the 4th level. Now, you could go back down and visit the lower vibration of the 3rd level, but because it's less desirable than the 4th level, you would not remain there. You might visit the 5th level, which is more desirable than the 4th, but you would be unable to tolerate the more intense vibrations of the 5th level for very long. Now, why do you want to raise your vibrational rate? Well, maybe it's because you want to get up to the 7th level, or it could simply be a way to get off the wheel of reincarnation. That's pretty good reason. Or maybe this is how we procreate additional energy for an energy gestalt that we're part of. Within your higher self is what Carl Jung calls the collective unconscious. Metaphysics teaches us that we're all one, and since we are all part of the collective unconscious, this is correct. We are all connected on this level. Maybe we're all part of a great energy gestalt called God. And if so, then since we are part of God, we are God. And we are dedicated to doing our part to increase the energy of the whole. Okay, let's put what is known scientifically about vibrational energy into the context of your life. Now, Albert Einstein discovered that matter is energy. Matter appears solid, but is, in reality, pulsing molecules of energy. The chair that you're sitting on appears solid, but it's composed of zillions of pulsating molecules of energy. The molecules are vibrating at a specific rate and are held together by the yin-yang tension of the earth plane. So, your chair is energy, and that plant over in the corner of the room is energy. Your body is energy. Your mind is energy. Your soul is energy. And the only difference between the chair and the plant and your body, mind, and soul is their vibrational rate. Now, your highest vibrational rate will exist in your higher self, or God self, the superconscious level of your mind, the level of the collective unconscious. But let's continue to explore what we know scientifically about energy. The physicists have isolated the smallest molecule of energy within a sealed cloud chamber. Now, nothing else can get in and nothing can get out. The molecule is too small to see with the naked eye, but it can be photographed on ultra-high sensitive film. The film shows that the molecule has a size, a weight, a pattern, and a speed, and it exists within the cloud chamber until it finally falls to the bottom, appearing to die. But it doesn't die. The scientists leave the camera on, and pretty soon the molecule is back. It is transformed. It has a new size, a new weight, a new pattern, and a new speed. And this goes on indefinitely. Energy can't die. It can only transform. And you are energy. You can't die. You can only transform. Now, how do you transform? I think you reincarnate. You reincarnate because you can raise your vibrational rate faster on the manifest plane than you can in spirit. And maybe you desire to move on up to a more desirable level on the other side. And maybe the goal of our entire energy gestalt is to generate more energy, because energy can't stand still. It must, by its very nature, move forward or backward. To stand still is to stagnate. And you are energy. So the same is true of you as an individual part of the energy gestalt. You are either moving forward or backward, preparing to transform. Do you know what makes your energy move forward? Aliveness. Aliveness causes your energy to move forward, creating more energy. Now, aliveness is real enjoyment in doing what you do. It's the excitement, exhilaration that makes you feel glad to be alive. It's the joy, stimulation, and pleasure that makes life worth living. And it's the expression of unconditional love. Aliveness is critical to your mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. But for many people, life is pretty long on misery and short on joy and aliveness. You repress who you really are by wearing masks and hiding your real feelings. You become so concerned with what other people think that you lose your own identity. You accept the expectations of others and succumb to your fears. When you succumb to your fears, you keep invalid beliefs and you give away your freedom, and you begin to close down and burn out. And life becomes routine and dull and boring. But your mind, as I've already said, can't handle boring. So you create places to hide, like sitting in front of a TV set or indulging in gossip, or maybe you hide in excess sleep, escapist reading, or metaphysical cosmic foo-foo. There are many places to hide. But if the places you create to hide are as empty as those I just described, you'll still be bored, so your mind will have to create something to make life more interesting. The brain-mind researchers have proven that your mind can't accept a mundane existence for long. So, maybe fighting with your mate will make life more interesting. At least when you hurt, you know you're alive. Or your mind could create a health problem. Kidney stones would give you something to talk about, wouldn't it? Or maybe you could have an accident. If your life is endangered, you'd experience a lot of aliveness. Your mind is vibrational energy, which must move forward or backward. Boredom is stagnation, energy moving backward and preparing to transform. So if you want to live and drive your energy forward, you'd better make your life interesting all on your own, or your mind will do it for you. I suggest you incorporate more positive challenge into your life. Challenge is critical to your well-being. As a natural expression of energy, when there is no longer any challenge, transformation follows. Now, you can observe this in people or in nations. History proves every nation that has reached its peak has fragmented and collapsed when unopposed or no longer challenged by other nations. I've personally observed couples who have struggled through all kinds of adversity until they finally resolved their difficulties and accomplished their goals. When there was no longer any challenge, they got a divorce. I've known very spiritual people who have attained the enlightenment they sought for so long, only to backslide and have to start over again with a new challenge. To keep your energy moving forward, you need aliveness and challenge in all areas of your life. This is even true of spiritual evolution. Challenge is very spiritual. But most metaphysical people don't realize this. Other New Age teachers have argued with me. They claim meditation is the path to enlightenment. And I think they're wrong. And today, with our awareness of brain-mind technology, it's easy to explain the fallacy of their ideas. Meditation assists you in detaching from the stress and anxiety of the manifest world. And there is no doubt that it's very effective in this area. The problem is that detachment is right across the board. You will detach from all the positive aspects of your life as well. The same thing happens when you take Valium or smoke grass. Meditation is healthier, but it won't work as a spiritual path if used to excess. Now, there's nothing wrong with a short daily meditation session, but if you do it for 40 minutes every morning and evening, as some people do, you will constantly remain in an alpha level of consciousness, and this can be easily demonstrated with an EEG machine. No wonder the gurus who want you to join their organizations encourage meditation. The more you meditate, the mellower you become until your mind begins to go flat. And the more you meditate, the more you detach from reality and become willing to respond to command. You've seen the groups in white robes, shaved heads, and blank eyes on the street corners. Their organizations keep them meditating and chanting several hours a day. I contend that we're here on earth to learn to consciously detach from negativity while we are wide awake in full beta consciousness, not stoned. And until we can go through an entire lifetime with total involvement in life without fear, we will continue to reincarnate upon the earth. So the idea is to generate a lot of aliveness and challenge in your life, and use the resulting opportunities to rise above the fears, expressing unconditional love. It is how you'll raise your vibrational rate and spiritually evolve. And it is also how you'll keep yourself mentally and physically healthy. The brain-mind researchers are proving again and again with their research that positive people with exciting lives are sick far less than others. And anyone can create a positive, exciting life. It doesn't take money, but it does take some effort. You have to decide exactly what you want, and then do something about it. Okay, the following article is titled, Your Subconscious Mind Isn't Your Friend, and it's from Master of Life, issue number 36. Like it or not, you are very much a robot. Your subconscious mind functions like a computer, with your past experiences serving as a software programming. This programming results in your viewpoint, the way you choose to experience your life. Viewpoint includes your attitudes, affinities, aversions, fears, and even your responses to the 5 physical senses: vision, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. Your robot-like computer scans its memory banks to decide how to relate to every experience. Now, listen to the next line very carefully. Akaban vidor devap dat fasis. All right? Your computer just checked your internal dictionaries in an attempt to relate the words to your past experience. Since it found no appropriate programming in your memory banks, it rejected the words as having no meaning for you. If you like the smell of steak frying on a barbecue grill, you probably salivate in response because of the positive associations in your computer memory banks. Burned toast would trigger an entirely different reaction. Your past experiences from this life and from previous lifetimes have programmed your viewpoint in every area of your life. Every one of us has different experiences, so we all have different viewpoints, and they are all incomplete and inaccurate. There is simply no way to know all there is to know about anything, so what you do know is distorted, and to make it worse, your new programming is always based upon your existing fears, prejudices, attitudes, morality, and spirituality. Thus, no two people experience an event the same way, or as it is. Every situation you encounter is instantly fed into your subconscious computer, which draws a conclusion based upon past programming which has allowed you to survive. New situations in conflict with your existing programming can make you feel insecure because your mind perceives them as a threat to survival. Maybe a friend calls and wants you to go out on a boat next weekend, but you're nervous about the idea. You don't know why. You've never had a negative experience with water or boats. But Unknown to your conscious mind, your computer has just scanned its subconscious memory banks and found that you drowned in a previous incarnation. So, it generates nervousness, and you respond by declining the invitation. Like all computer conclusions, your response is a logical computation of the existing data. No matter how ridiculous the conclusion, it is correct because the past experiences it is based on have allowed you to survive until now. And survival is the pre-programmed goal of every single one of us. The result of your subconscious computer running the show is your current life, just the way it is. Your computer says that it's okay to live your life as you do in comparison to the past, and it refers to its memory banks for guidance and justifications. Now, some of this is good. It causes you to look both ways before running out into the street, but some of your survival programming creates problems in your current life. If you starve to death in a past life, you may be programmed to overeat in an attempt to survive in this life. If success in a former incarnation led to self-indulgence and ruination, you may be programmed to avoid success this time around. If you didn't make enough money to feed your children in a previous incarnation, you might be a workaholic today. In situations like this, your subconscious computer is out of alignment with conscious reality. But the only way it can function is to be right and to make you feel right about your decisions. Why? Because it wants you to survive so it can survive. Now, it doesn't care if you get what you want out of your life. It just needs to be right in order to protect itself. So what happens? Your subconscious computer gets to be right, and you lose the game. A friend of mine named Darren was married to a wonderful lady. Now, Darren had to be right. He always had all the answers. And every time his wife opened her mouth, Darren would correct her. After 5 years of this, his wife filed for a divorce because she was tired of being wrong all the time. Now, Darren didn't want a divorce, but for 5 years he had gotten to be right, and now he's lost the game. A man named Joe used to come to all the seminars I conducted in the Southwest. He always listened intently, frequently shaking his head negatively throughout the day. At the end of each seminar, he would come up and tell me that he could conduct a far better seminar. I let him be right, acknowledging his rightness by saying, "Yes, Joe, I understand you think that." Now, he got to be right, and I continued to win the game by collecting the seminar fees. No matter what the situation, most people are programmed to be right and will instantly go on tilt if you challenge their rightness. So, in realizing this, it makes a lot of sense to let others be right while you win the game. If your only goal is to get to be right, you would be wise to rethink your priorities. Our seminar coordinator keeps several boxes of tissue in the seminar ballroom to pass out to participants who cry during the past life regression. She realized just prior to my tear-inducing victim bad guy Bushido training regression that she'd forgotten the tissues. Running quickly to the hotel's housekeeping department, she discovered the door was locked, so she went to the assistant manager of the hotel. "I need some tissues immediately," she demanded. Affronted by her demand, the assistant manager immediately resorted to rightness. "I'm sorry, but housekeeping is closed. You should have asked sooner. There's absolutely no way I can help you now." Well, she was about to push the issue when she remembered my talks about rightness and the survival of the mind. "Yes, I do understand that," she said. "But in a few minutes, a lot of people are going to be crying in the seminar, and I don't have any tissue for them. What can we do about it?" The manager, upon being allowed to be right, could concentrate upon the problem. He robbed several hotel bathrooms of their boxes of tissues. When my son, Travis, was younger, I didn't have time to pack his big-wheel tricycle to take on a plane trip. Upon presenting it to Western Airlines' baggage check-in clerk, he said, "You can't check it through like this. It has to be in a shipping carton." Now, he was right. If I had challenged him, he wouldn't have backed down. Instead, I said, "I know you're right, and my son really wants to have his bike on his vacation. Isn't there anything we can do?" The big wheel traveled to our destination in an airline dog transport cage. To give up being right in your life means cutting some of the connections between you and the robot portion of your totality. But when you stop attempting to be right, you avoid many hassles and have extra time to do more productive things. Always be aware that the other guy, or gal, needs to be right. His computer functions that way, and unless you let him be right, his survival is threatened, and there will be trouble. So remember that your goal is to win the game. Quickly allow him to be right with a phrase such as, "Yes, I understand that." It's so simple, and you're not giving up a thing, but it is enough to take him off tilt. His computer's survival will no longer be threatened, and he can then concentrate on the problem. All right, here are some more Enlightenment transcript dialogues. Dialogue number 1. Karen almost held up her hand. She was forcing herself to ask a question, but doing it timidly, hoping that I wouldn't see her. When I called upon her, she stood up and quietly asked, "Is possessiveness considered one of the fears that must be overcome?" "Yes. Are you possessive of your husband?" I asked. She nodded affirmatively. "Well, we're possessive because we're insecure, and it isn't logical. Why are we insecure? Because we don't believe we will have enough. Enough what? Enough love, enough sex, enough time, enough control, enough exclusive attention. Or maybe we're afraid the relationship won't last forever. We feel something is missing or impermanent, and we don't always even know what it is or why we feel what we feel. But we grab harder to assure nothing else is lost." "That's just about it," Karen said. "I don't know why I fight it so much." "Well, it could be programming from a past life, Karen," I explained. "Maybe the two of you have been together before, or it could be any of thousands of other reasons. Throughout our lives we are always moving from the known to the unknown. This makes us insecure, and we fight it. We resist insecurity, but to no avail. People and circumstances will always change." "But let's look at that," I continued. "What if you could attain total security? Now think about it. Anyone with any sense of adventure, any drive or imagination would soon become bored. Your life would become dull and mundane. There would be no challenge in your relationship or in your life, no aliveness. Think back on your own relationships and those you have observed. When there is no challenge and no aliveness in a relationship, it goes flat. There's no energy, and pretty soon you probably couldn't care less if the relationship lasted or not." "Then it's a double bind," she said in response. "Damned if you do and damned if you don't." "Right," I admitted. "You are possessive because you don't want to lose a relationship. You are possessive because you are insecure. But if you were totally secure, there would be no challenge or aliveness, so you'd probably grow tired of the relationship. So your fearful emotions are not even logical." Karen thought for a long time before saying, "Well, what if I said I was jealous of my husband? There are differences between possessiveness and jealousy." "Sure there are," I said. "When you are jealous of your husband, you are excessively concerned that he is not as committed to the relationship as you want him to be. In being jealous, your viewpoint is one of being incomplete. For some reason, you think that only through the relationship with him can you be complete. But step back, stop, and look at that. You have to realize it isn't logical. If you aren't complete without your husband, the relationship cannot make you complete. Excessively jealous people often feel that they won't be able to survive without the other person, and that isn't any more logical than the first point I made. You know you'll survive, but your jealousy could drive your husband away, because jealousy is always hostility with a mask." "Oh boy," Karen said, sitting down. "We'll be exploring a lot more that directly relates to your situation, Karen. Stay with me and be aware that most of your fears are just as illogical as those we just explored." Dialogue number 2. "Aren't you overlooking something?" Rosemary asked with noticeable anger in her voice. "Maybe Karen has damn good reason to be jealous and possessive of her husband. Maybe her husband, like mine, can't be trusted out of her sight." "Well, you can't change other people, Rosemary. It never works. Oh, sure, you can tell your husband, if you don't change, I'm going to leave, and the threat might even work for a while. But then he'd be repressing what he really wants to do, and eventually the repression will erupt, and maybe in an even less desirable way." "Oh, great. I can look forward to living like this for the rest of my life? I came here to find answers on how to make it work, not to hear that," she snapped. "Well, I don't have anyone else's answers, Rosemary," I responded. "What I can do is create the space for you to find your own answers. You need to be aware that you cannot change others, so you might as well accept them as they are, if you choose to remain in the environment. I take it that you do want to stay with your husband. But what if you knew that after another 10 years things would still be the same between the two of you? Would you stay?" "No way," she replied. "Well, what about 5 years?" I asked. "No," she said. 2 years? Rosemary looked away, thinking for several seconds. I'd stay 2 more years. "All right. At least we're getting somewhere. Your marriage is terminal. He has 2 years to change. Now, do you really think he'll change?" "I doubt it. He'll probably be an old man before he stops chasing around," she said sadly. "Well, what if you were to change, Rosemary? You can't change your husband, but you can change yourself, and then he'd be reacting to a new person in you. He might change because he wanted to." "Do you mean be nicer to him, or to be more sexy, or something like that?" Rosemary asked. "I don't know how you might change, because I don't know the inner workings of your relationship, but what about that? What if you were to be nicer and sexier?" "No, it isn't that we don't get along. We get along most of the time, and our sex life is just great. It's just that he likes variety, and that's something I can't provide." "Okay, well, let's look at it from another viewpoint. Your husband's affairs are fulfilling some psychological needs he has. Would he be open to exploring his own insecurities in a seminar like this, or with a psychologist or a psychiatrist?" "You don't know how funny that question is, Richard. Absolutely not. Without going into details, absolutely not." "Well, then that's what is. What is your husband is a man who likes to chase around and have affairs with other women. And what is he probably isn't going to change. And what is you're going to stick around for another 2 years. So, my advice for you is to accept him as perfect the way he is." "What?" Rosemary almost screamed at me. "Well, in accepting what is, you can find some peace. Don't be blind to the logic. It isn't logical to upset yourself when there's no value in doing so. The upset will only result in more negative programming of your subconscious mind, so it will only make matters worse. Think about it, Rosemary," I continued. "Since you can't change him, unless you can come up with some other creative solution, you might as well give him the freedom to be what he is." "What do you mean by some other creative solution?" she asked. "Well, in 25 years of working with people, I've seen and heard some pretty unusual agreements that work for those involved. Open sexual agreements, threesomes, and group sex are ways that people resolve their needs. There are as many potential arrangements as there are people." "No, I've thought about that, and we even tried something once, but I have no desire for further experimentation in that area," she explained. "All right. Then you really have only 2 choices. You can choose to remain in the environment or to leave. And you can choose to resist what your husband is, or accept him as perfect. If you accept him as he is, then let go of your anger, resentments, hostility, and blame. Unless you let go of the negative emotions, you'll still be resisting him." "Some choices," Rosemary quipped. "And there's no way I'll ever look at him as perfect." "Then how about replacing perfect with acceptable as he is?" I asked. Rosemary gave me an exasperated look and sat down. Dialogue number 3. I'm still stuck on some of the things you said about accepting other people as they are. Some people just aren't acceptable as they are, April stated, making gestures of futility with her hands. She was in her late 20s, attending the seminar with a girlfriend who apparently shared her taste for trendy attire. April, when you can't accept someone as they are, you are making them wrong in comparison with your viewpoint. And that's not unconditional love. You also need to be aware that you don't see the other people in your life as they really are. You see them through your veil of opinions and conclusions, your totally subjective viewpoint. So, you certainly don't see them accurately. Remember back to when a friend fell in love with someone and you could not understand what she saw in him? Well, your viewpoints were different. Everybody sees everybody differently, and none of these perceptions are accurate. Thus, we all deal with illusions. Illusions. Other people's reactions to you are nothing but statements of their viewpoints, and they have nothing to do with accurate facts and absolutely nothing to do with the way things actually are. So, if human interaction is based upon perceptions that are inaccurate, that are illusions, then why bother to judge others at all? It isn't even logical. And when you stop judging other human beings, you let go of another fear, and you become capable of expressing more unconditional love. Okay, April said, bouncing back into her seat. As I said at the beginning of this book on tape, just 4 words can summarize all of my metaphysical teachings. Cast away your delusions. This is the ultimate wisdom, the ultimate answer. It's the way to eliminate suffering and the formula for enlightenment. Good luck at putting some of the concepts to work in your life, and thank you very much for listening. And now, stay tuned for a short book on tape preview.
This has been a presentation of Valley of the Sun Audio, Box 38, Malibu, California, 90265. The articles from Master of Life are copyrighted by Valley of the Sun, 1986, 1987, 1988, 1989, and 1990. Valley of the Sun books and tapes are stocked in New Age and other fine stores throughout the world. We're very excited about offering a new genre of books on tape. Original metaphysical fiction based upon philosophical concepts and psychic potentials. Now, for the few minutes remaining on this tape, here's a preview of Those Who Share Our Energy. It's a 3-hour novella, a mesmerizing metaphysical love story, and this is how it begins.
Sedona, Arizona. On a red rock ledge 100 feet above the floor of Boynton Canyon, Darcy Farrell sat alone, naked, eyes closed and cross-legged in deep meditation. The image of an Indian flickered before her inner eyes. Eagle feathers dangled from the leather strands that bound his braided white hair. His floating image appeared to glow against the sheer red walls on the far side of the canyon. "Welcome home, my child." His silent greeting filled her mind. She responded with a thought. "I don't understand." "You understand it is time to dry your tears." "Easier said than done," Darcy smiled. The Indian raised his hands in the air as if to embrace the sky. "Easier than you think." He was beginning to fade as he pulled an eagle feather from his hair and thrust it toward her. "Full moon," he said, and disappeared. "Come back! Please come back!" Darcy's words were no longer silent, and the sound of her own voice pulled her out of the altered state of consciousness. She opened her eyes to see the same scene she had observed in meditation, minus the Indian. Chaparral grew from the cracks in the rocky ledge. Her sweaty clothes were spread over the branches, drying in the sunshine. 4 feet in front of her, the ledge dropped off, the sheer rock wall plunging down to the green canyon floor. Dry red washes spiderwebbed the terrain. The rock wall at her back ascended hundreds of feet into the air and was streaked many shades of red by millions of years of wind and rain spiraling through the canyon. At the end of the canyon, a giant monolith rose out of the chaparral and manzanita as if in tribute to God. Darcy stood up slowly and twisted her well-toned torso from side to side, then backwards until her long raven hair brushed the ground. When she bent forward, she saw the black-tipped eagle feather between her feet. She picked it up and brushed it with her fingers, parting the webs and stroking them back into place. She touched the feather to her lips, kissed it, blew on the fluffy down at the base, and then held her spiritual gift to the sky and twirled it slowly against the April sun. Orange streaks flared behind the flowing, translucent patterns within the vein. She smiled like a fascinated child, inhaling deeply, dancing delicately with her bare feet to unheard music. Both arms in the air, one holding the feather, she turned and turned, her eyes closed, her naked body kissed by the sun, as she expressed the exhilaration that filled her soul. It was the sort of joyous, emotional display that her ex-husband deplored, an uninhibited expression of her metaphysical beliefs that he found intolerable. As she thought of Jack, her foot came to rest on the loose rock at the edge of the ledge. It crumbled and gave way. Darcy's eyes snapped open. She lunged away from the edge, falling flat on her stomach, grasping for a hold in the rock's surface. She felt her fingernails painfully bending and breaking as she balanced momentarily, her lower body hanging over the edge. She held her breath, her sapphire eyes wide with fear. The only sound was the wind strafing through a channel in the canyon wall, spawning a ghostly moan that ascended into a wail and then rolled away down the canyon. When Darcy finally inhaled, she slipped, maybe an inch, her fingertips leaving tiny trails of blood. The chaparral trunk was a foot to her left. If she reached for it, she'd surely fall. If I don't, I'll fall anyway, she thought in horror. Simultaneously attempting to claw a fingerhold into the rock with her right hand, she lunged for the tree trunk with her left, grasped it, and felt her body slip free of the ledge to dangle over the edge by one hand. She clawed desperately at the tree with her right hand, her clutching fingers only grasping leaves that shredded from the branches. As her left hand began to lose its grip, she clutched heavier branches with her wildly flailing right hand. "Help! Oh, God, please, someone help!" she screamed. Her mind raced. Her hands felt torn from her body. "Do you want to die here like this?" The thought jackknifed through her mind. Jack would deem it appropriate. The thought gave her the strength to wrench herself up enough to lock one arm around the trunk of the small tree. She was momentarily more secure, but her lack of strength and the angle of the cliff negated any chance of pulling herself back up over the edge. "Help! Help! Help!" The words reverberated through the canyon like a multitude of pleading voices, echoing the word until it became a ghostly whisper, indistinguishable from the wind. There were hikers. I saw them, she thought. So what? It would take somebody too long to climb up here. I can't hang on. Trembling, whimpering, she imagined herself falling through space, screaming until she hit the rocks with a sickening thud. Would I die instantly or slowly as my blood oozed out over the rocks? The pain was streaking down her right arm as if her blood were beginning to boil. The arm crooked around the trunk was turning white and going numb. Her mind reeled. What do I have to live for anyway? A divorced 30-year-old woman with no special talents? Just let go. Let go. No, don't let go. A wave of dizziness jumbled her thoughts. Breathing deeply to push it away, she clutched the trunk tighter. Bad karma, Darcy. Haven't earned enough good girl credits. Her eyes flooded with tears that rolled lazily down her cheeks and then tumbled off into space, to splash on crystal-encrusted rocks 10 stories below.
Don't let go!
The faraway voice was male. Did I hear it? No. Yes, I think.
It would take me time to get to you,
said the voice.
Hold on.
Hurry, please hurry. The echo sounded like her own voice mocking her for being such a cosmic fool. I was dancing naked with my eyes closed on the edge of a cliff and fell off the edge. You need help, Darcy. New Age ideas are for retards. Jack's voice prodded her. You should be locked up and deprogrammed like a cult convert. Why don't you let go? You're too stupid to live. Leave me alone, Jack! Darcy realized she was yelling out loud. The dizziness came in waves now. She fought to focus upon holding the chaparral trunk. Are you still coming? She screamed. There was no answer. As she strained to hear, she noticed the eagle feather lying on the ground a few feet from the edge of the cliff. It stirred lazily in response to the wind.